So now it's time to do phase 2 of the buildup of the CB500X Rally Raid Stage 3 Adventure Kit, the front end. We're going to remove the cowling, remove the front wheel and fender. I've been running around with the new front wheel showing everybody off these new wheels and tires. Replace the innards to the front forks with the new Rally Raid products. Remove and replace the triple tree, and also have to drill out the ignition barrel hardened bolts there. So I went down and got, they called for a 9mm drill, 3/8 looks to be close enough, and a big 30mm socket for the triple tree. And Pete here is going to show you where to find the instructions for phase 2 of the Rally Raid build. Pete, tap on the Honda. On this page, let's tap on the level 2 adventure suspension kit. Yep. Even though we're working on the level 3 suspension kit. Now, Pete, scroll to the bottom of the page there. And right here, fork upgrade fitting instructions are located. Tap on that, Pete.
Tap?
The bottom one. Yep.
Like this?
Level 2 and 3 fork upgrade fitting instructions. And the other set of instructions we'll need is the triple clamp fitting instructions located here. Top triple clamp fitting instructions. And this is where we're going to start with phase 2 of the build, the front end. Pull the seat and remove power from the battery. Good point, since we're going to be working near the electrical system. We've already got the frame shrouds off from earlier. Start removing the hardware for the fairing shroud. Here. And down here at the radiator. Each bit of hardware for the fairing shroud is a little different, so keep track of it. We'll put them back where they belong. Another bolt up in here. This is all done with a 5mm Allen. Now we got to get in here and pull these 2 bolts with the dome nuts off. Get in here with a 12mm. They're pretty Loctited tight. Got them broke loose now. Pretty tight. On the left side of the fairing are the 2 electrical disconnect fittings. Pull them apart. And simply lift rubber bat and all fairing shroud off the bike. Careful with those. That's fairly substantial chunk of hardware there. Kind of heavy. Oh yeah, look at that. It's all this metal frame up in here. Adds to the weight. It'd be nice to come up with a lightweight alternative to this maybe, but it looks so cool. A lot of trick plastic molded parts that really give this thing its shape. Now she's looking stripped down. All you cafe racers just want to put one big round headlight up here. That would look kind of cool. This is what I've been looking for since I bought the bike. Here's the radiator filler cap. So you got to take that whole shroud off to service the radiator. Looks like a charcoal canister for the smog. More bunch of relays in here. Put all this hardware back in here where I found it for easy reassembly. Pull the 2 Phillips screws that hold the plastic cover onto the ignition barrel. It holds this bracket here which grabs your cables. Okay, now it's time for what's been termed the hardest part of the job, drilling the heads of these security bolts that hold the ignition barrel into the stock triple tree. We'll be replacing this with Rally Raid hardware. I think I'll go ahead and get the wheel off and the fender off at this time, so we don't have to work around that. Loosen the 12mm pinch bolt. And wait on the wheel. There we go. Love them new Rally Raid spanners. Don't scratch the paint. When we put this all back together, we're going to have to raise the bike up even a little bit more. So we got at least an additional 2 inches of clearance for the new suspension. I'll go over the fender assembly when we put it back together. Real simple. One other item you're going to want to pick up is some 10 weight fork oil. I got some Bel-Ray here, 1 liter, should do the job. Try our fancy new expensive drill bit. Cobalt, this one says, for hardened steel. So 9mm is the call out, so I grabbed a 3/8 inch drill bit. 9.5mm. Boy, that cuts it pretty good. It's gonna see, it's gonna take a bit. Helps if you hold your tongue just right. It's just drilling like butter with this expensive drill bit. Look at that. That was record time. Hot. Oh yeah. Yeah, this 3/8 size drill bit here in the States works just fine. Spend the money, get a good new sharp one. Makes this job a breeze. And let's pull this out of the way so you can get a good straight shot into the bolt on this side. Ta-da! Piece of cake. That wasn't hard at all. One each ignition barrel. We'll just let that hang, and we're gonna press it back into service on the new triple tree clamp. Step 9, time to pull the handlebar clamps, 12mm. Okay, now without scratching the paint all up, drop the whole handlebar assembly down forward here. Throw the hardware back in here for now. Honda. Get a better look at the stock alloy triple tree. Step 10, we're gonna pop these loose. And then with these loose and these tight, we'll loosen up the caps to the forks. We're just going to break these loose. I'm not going to take them apart just yet. And now time to try our brand new 30mm socket to pop loose the top nut to the triple tree. Oh, that's torqued on pretty tight. It just presses in there. Nut and washer. Don't forget to remove this nut here that holds that bracket. Holds that washer. And there it is, the original alloy triple tree versus the new Rally Raid triple tree. So there's going to be the new bolts for the ignition there, ignition barrel. Drop that on there for now. Okay, from step 12 to step 13 here, we're going to jump on the other set of instructions for the forks. Step 13, you start reinstalling everything. Okay, on to the fork upgrade fitting instructions. If you are not competent or unsure about fitting new fork internals, then consult a professional suspension workshop. We don't need no stinking professionals. Now, it's been a long time since I've been inside a set of fork tubes, but these are pretty basic, simple forks. So following his instructions closely, I'm sure we can figure this out. Pull the brake caliper off. Toss the bolts back in here for now. And then hang this brake caliper in such a way that you're not tugging on the line too hard. I'll just try laying it up here for now. Loosen the lower pinch bolt, 14mm socket, and pull the fork tube out. Ta-da. One each pogo stick. Remember, the right fork tube is the one with the axle thread in it. Believe it or not, it is easy to get these reversed. Loosen up the left fork lower pinch bolt and pull it out. Okay, she's looking a bit naked now. Okay, I'm going to bring these caps back down to just snug. In an effort to make sure I got as much preload as possible on this spring to get the dampener rod bolt out of the bottom of the fork. The damper rod itself that bolts into can spin freely inside the fork tube here. One of the problems with these damper rod bolts is they're pretty shallow. Hard to get a good grip on. So with the long end of a 6mm Allen wrench, reach in here to get your damper rod bolt, and then fashion a lever out of a deep dish socket. Get some support here while you're torquing on this thing so that it stays square in the head of the bolt there. You can get it out without a vise. Oh, I got it. I think something gave. Ay. Yes. All right, we got it. As per the instructions, there's a copper washer underneath that bolt. Don't lose it. The vise recommended in the instructions is the optimum setup. Now, fork oil is going to start leaking out of there if you loosen it up much more. So let's loosen that up, get the fork oil out, and get the spring out. Okay, let's take the top off. Got my old drip pan right here, waiting for it. Okay, here comes the O-ring. Now we'll tip it up, keep the fluid inside. When you're working on a flat surface like this, watch these expensive parts rolling around, falling down, and getting dinged. Okay, this is under a little bit of spring pressure, but not bad. We're going to reuse that O-ring and replace that cap. Okay, here's the the infamous little plastic spacer piece that's inside these fork tubes. There it is. There's the yucky old oil after only, what's this thing gone out? 4,500 miles or so. Get rid of this dribbly old spring out here. Boy, that's a short spring, huh? It's progressively wound for sure, but it's short. Let that drain in there. Let's go drain the rest of the oil out. Now we'll finish removing the damper rod bolt. Now you got oil's going to be flying out of both ends now. Don't lose the washer, he says. Haha. One each damper rod and top out spring. I'm going to set this up somewhere to drain. Let the last bit of that oil drain out in the hot sun for a bit. Remove the O-ring from here and put it on the new cap. Appears to be in good shape. No rips or tears. Clean. A little bit of oil in there. And roll her onto the new one. We can compare the stock to the Rally Raid damper rod. Quite a bit more stroke on this one. Plus room for shims in this one. Pull the top out spring from the original damper rod and this split ring carefully. Discard the stock damper rod. Install the split ring on the new damper rod and the top out spring. Alright, this thing's ready to go back together. We're going to let the oil drain out. I feel like a cooking show. We're going to let the oil drain out of the old forks. Baste it lightly with a bit of garlic. Here's the stock spring on the left with the spacer on it, and the new TracTive spring, I believe it is, from Rally Raid on the right. Quite a bit more spring. Here's that extra bit of overlap they were talking about on the online form that they're going to take advantage of to get the extra 2 inches of travel out of these stock fork tubes. Now the bolt didn't fall out of here yet, so I'm going to try and get this back in with the bolt still in there. Let's see if it works. Got the top out spring, got the split ring, damper rod. That's all there is to the bottom of these fork tubes. Okay. Now take the new spring, and we're going to apply pressure with this onto the dampener rod and try to get the bolt started into the new damper rod. Look at that, the bolt decided to fall out after all. So here's an opportunity, maybe you can stick a small screwdriver in there to aid with the alignment. Let's take a look, see what we got. It looks like it's lined up really nice. Get your bolt on your wrench, feed it into there, into there. Let's see if we can get this thing started by hand. Bit of a greasy, slippery mess. Pull the spring out. Damper rod is in place. Now we're going to finish tightening this up, the dampener rod, after it's fully assembled. Because you need the tension of the spring with the preload caps on there to put the final hurt on this bolt here. You can feel that top out spring working there. Check for freedom of movement. I just noticed something on the instructions here. This is saying a 5-weight, use 5-weight fork oil. I bought 10-weight fork oil. Ruh-roh. At any rate, we're going to pour in 150 milliliters of fork oil. After you pour the proper amount of fork oil in there, work it up and down several times, working out the bubbles. Then you're going to insert this shim stack with the threaded end down. This shim stack is what's going to give you much more accurate suspension control in your front forks. And then you're going to add the new spacer, the Rally Raid spacer, with the shouldered end down so that it fits like this right over the shim stack. Don't put it in this way, it won't work. It's got to go in this way. And then the last order of assembly will be the spring on top of this. The spring is going to fit down on top of this. And finally your preload caps. Start with 150 milliliters of your favorite fork oil. Work the fork tube up and down a little bit. This removes air bubbles. Working the fork. Okay, now we're going to drop the shim stack in, thread it in first, followed by the spacer, shouldered in first so it fits on top of this. Make sure that shim stack sits down there properly. Might have to jiggle it up and down a couple times. Next we drop in the spacer with the shouldered end first. Make sure that's all lined up properly down in there. Now pour yourself another cocktail of 300 additional milliliters of your favorite fork oil. By the way, 300 milliliters is the same as 300 cc's. It's 1-to-1 milliliters and cc's. And this is all the more accuracy we're going to use on our oil quantity for these forks. We're not going to use that an air gap tool or anything fancy like that. These forks are just not that all that complicated. So that's a total of 450 milliliters times 2. 1 quart of fork oil is all you need. We gotta work this in and remove the air bubbles. It's pretty close to the top, so look out. Another technique he discusses in the instructions is to pressurize the forks like that. Help force out any air bubbles. Now drop in the new spring. And I don't see that it makes a difference which way the spring goes, but I'm going to start with the numbers on top. Okay. Now we're going to add the caps. We're going to loosen up the preload as much as possible and try and spin those caps into position. Don't forget the O-ring. Good. Ta-da!
Daddy.
Yes, Peach.
I see something that says something.
You see something that says something?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What does it says?
I don't know.
Can you read yet? A little bit? What does S-T-O-P spell? It says tighten these preloaders by hand. Okay, now let's put the final torque on the damper rod bolt. There. One each pogo. Reconditioned. Rally raid style.
I don't want that stuff.
Yeah, well, you gotta learn how to spell and type, son.
I don't know how to.
Well, you're 3 years old. What are you waiting for? Okay, now we're going to repeat the same process with the other fork leg. Set your handlebar adjustment where you think you might want it. Tighten here. This anodized coating may give you a little bit of interference. Pull the top of your new triple tree off. Put Make sure you got the left fork going on the left side. Time to line up the new triple tree. Just gonna get everything together loosely initially and bring it just up to the top of the new triple tree. Just going to do this loosely for now, just to hang on to it. Get the right fork tube slid back into position. The right fork tube is the one with the brake caliper side in it. This is out of the way, and see that your wiring is all going the correct orientation. Work this top triple tree into position. Keep bringing her down slowly. Torque this down to 103 Newton meters. Adjust the forks so that they're just to the top of the triple tree. Torque to 27 Newton meters, the lower pinch bolt. Finish bringing the caps home. Minor issue here, the top pinch bolts on the original piece, you know, they could bolt right through the alloy casting. On the new Rally Raid casting, that's not the case, so these bolts are a bit too long. The OEM bolts are going to bottom out in the casting before they tighten up the pinch there. Now, here's a clever workaround. These two bolts down here are going to get replaced. They just happen to fit just fine in here as pinch bolts. So that's my plan. It's Sunday afternoon, the stores are all closed. What are you going to do? Torque the upper pinch bolts to 27 Newton meters. The two fairing mounting bolts here are going to get replaced with this hardware here. And I'm not really clear why that is. Unless, I don't think he planned on doing this hardware swap. Lay the handlebars into position on the new risers. Drop your new clamp into place. Add your new shortened pinch bolt here. Pull the new Rally Raid bar adjustment bolts out of the bottom, Loctite them, and torque them into place. I'm going to start with the bars placed far forward. Loctited and torqued back into place. The bar adjustment bolts. Loctite our new Rally Raid bolts to replace the security bolts on the ignition. Okay, we're going to replace this hardware, the OEM screws for the plastic ignition cover, with the new Rally Raid Allen head bolts here. A little bit of Loctite. Okay, we're going to put these in through here, grab these brackets, make sure this is going in the right direction, and get these bolts started. Okay, we're going to torque these down, and I think we want to put this plastic cover on first before the ignition barrel, or you'll never get to these bolts. instructions got them going the other way around. Ignition barrel first and then plastic cover. I think this wants to go on first. Okay, now let's get the ignition barrel in. Put the ignition barrel in place with the new hardware. Torque these in. Okay, that's good. Get the brake caliper back on. Some fresh Loctite. Now here's an interesting dilemma with the extended forks now. We're pulling kind of hard on this hose with this bracket, so let's see if we can slide this bracket up the hose a bit. Okay, I just can't get this thing to move, so I'm just going to disregard this for now. We'll just zip tie it in there. With your caps torqued on and your hoses and brackets routed, you can torque your top pinch bolts now at 27 Newton meters. Okay, clean up our mess here. Get that stuff out of the bearing head. Our shavings from our drilling. Now what I want to do now is put the front wheel on loosely, loosen up the pinch bolts, and push down on the suspension a little bit. Try and get everything straightened out. Okay, let's give it a few of these and line everything up before we tighten everything down. Yep, we're gonna ride it. She's definitely taller.
Well, Daddy, to where?
In the front though, right? In the back?
I'm gonna ride it all the way to the front yard, Pete. From the backyard. And now, torque down the pinch bolt. Everything should be lined up now. Okay, here's your new fender. This is the to the rear of the bike, and this is to the forward part. Here's your new height adjustment right here. And it comes with these new spacers. So don't lose the spacers. Here's your new Rally Raid cool little covers. Covers this area up and bolts the fender in the front. Okay, that's on there. And the short bolt down here. Okay, and then the behind here goes your spacer. Let's see. Spacer, bolt, and reflector like this. Alright. Okay, we got everything on loosely. Torque everything down. And torque all these down. This little bracket came off of the wiring for the left side handlebar. I'm going to just take that off because that bolt hole is no longer there, and we'll just tidy this up with a little bit of zip tie-in. Okay. Since this bracket really no longer fits, I'll just try a little zip tie here. Let's see how it does under compression. It's wiggling just fine. Check your handlebars left and right. Make sure nothing's pinched or binding or hitting. Oh yeah, we can't forget our little plastic trim piece in here. Okay, let's work on getting the Batman fairing back into position. Right. Okay, get our new Rally Raid bolts into here. Tighten these up somewhat, but don't bring them home yet. Let's get all the rest of the hardware on the shroud first. And start putting your shroud hardware back together. Good. Okay, put your wires back together. On this left side of the shroud, there's two plugs. One and two. The second plug right there. And your top shroud bolts here and over here. Boy, this whole machine is a lot taller than it was. Good. Okay, good. I'll do it again. Okay, we got these two down here. All right, let's tighten everything up. That is good. Okay, now we can tighten up the new Rally Raid hardware for the shroud here. Now, I'm not really clear according to the instructions why we change this out, but I tell you what I did is I used these two bolts here for our new upper pinch bolts because the OEM bolts were too long. They bottomed out in the Rally Raid triple tree. So I'm not sure if that was left out of the instructions or what. But there's no real modification here that required this new hardware. I do like these nylon lock nuts over those corn nuts, but it worked out good to use the hardware for the pinch bolts for the new Rally Raid triple tree. Reconnect the battery. And let's put the seat on. Let's see what kind of a beast we've created here. Okay, you pop your Honda door panel shrouding back on. A little bit of Velcro and two bolts right here. And one right up here. Okay, here it is. Have we created a beast? Is it going to be too tall? I don't think so. I'm only 5.5 feet tall. I've got a pretty short inseam. So let's give it a go. Now this is my typical routine on all these big adventure bikes, is to do a hayaka like that. On. Okay, down there, what do we got on the ground? I'm right back to tippy toes the way I used to be. But very manageable. Definitely a lot taller, but very manageable. Now, I can feel my feet are way above the ground. Brings up a couple points here. Okay, aftermarket providers, a couple more things that might be cool to come up with for the CB500 is a method of lowering and maybe bringing forward the foot pegs, adding a foldable brake lever there, and same thing with the shift lever. If we bring this down and forward a little bit, but a nice foldable shift lever in the event of tip overs. Those would be a couple of cool aftermarket items for this bike to continue adventurizing it. Very cool though. It's looking good. Let's take it for a little spin, see what we got. We kind of got to break in the suspension. This new suspension's kind of got to need to be broke in a bit before you really go hog wild on it. I don't know, that looks pretty damn good. I like the tail bobbed a bit. And all the Rally Raid hardware put on there. It's about a good weekend job to get all this done for the first time. If you were doing it the second time, you could probably do the entire job in a day. A long day. But everything bolted together just fine. The only issue I had was the top pinch bolts. The OEM ones were too long. I used the bolts off of the shroud mount to fix that. Everything else fit just fine. Okay, I know you guys at Honda are watching, so there it is. That's what you need to make next. A mid-size adventure bike. Or just make the CB500X Adventure. The CB500X Adventure Rally Raid Stage 3 kit, done and done. Preliminary test run here before dark. 2 thumbs up. Looks like everything works as advertised and more. We'll have to do a lot more testing and adventures to really get a good feel for it. Really looking forward to it. So special thanks to everybody involved. Rally Raid, I think you got a great product here. Everything bolted together very well. The instructions were very clear. Excellent instructions. Jenny Morgan, amazing. Thanks for all the online help, putting up with all of our stupid questions and answering them with tact and patience during the development of this. and putting it together. Rally Raid, Harold, thanks so much for picking up the distributorship of this and making it possible here in the United States to get into this kit without getting killed on shipping. Good job getting this thing down here real quick. So we got a bunch of assembly videos to put together. Hope you guys can use them, and you folks that are out there interested in this kit will be able to use those videos too. Hope they're a good help to everybody. So thanks to everybody. I'm going to go have a beer now and just look at this thing some more. Pretty amazing.